So we'll call the meeting to order. And if you're joining in the pledge of allegiance, you can take that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, having reviewed the agenda, is there a motion to approve? So moved. I second that approval. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, duly noted, passes 2-0. Madam Secretary, Executive Secretary, Board Secretary. All right, we have before us the 8% capital needs category. Ms. Crutchfield, will you want to?
I will start us off, yes, and then I'm probably going to turn it over to Nick Vila, who's joining us online, who is just the master of all these spreadsheets. So after our last meeting, you all asked us to bring back another list, a little bit longer list, a little bit more projects. So we're at $43,572,000 on this capital improvement list. You will see in your handout, it sort of breaks it out into those categories. That first page shows your academic support, asset preservation. You're all familiar with this format at this point. The second page breaks it out into the disciplines where those items fall so that you can see again those big groupings. Nick, the master of all data and charts, on your third page, it gives you a little bit of a visual, which helps you to see some of that information and sharing it across in that 5-year plan. And then there's the detailed list.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, jump in at any point.
This will be very brief, just to sort of give them overall. You may recall that in a prior meeting, 2 prior meetings, we asked the operations income and calibration and finance to come in at 30 million, which had traditionally been the target that had been established. We wanted to show the organization that we were basically being disciplined and compliant with history and what the standards and expectations had been. However, clearly at that point in time, there were projects that were suitable, necessary in many cases. And so we got consent from the larger organization, and formally we didn't take it to a vote. I don't recall. And we informed everybody that we would be coming back with 43 million. So we wanted to prepare the organization. We met your standards. Now we're going to stretch it a little bit. We'll put some rigor into saying what's the prioritization of those items. Everybody okay with that for the recap? Okay, with that, you and Mr.
Okay.
I think you said you introduced him.
Nick Felix with Turner Townsend Hearing. I don't know exactly what Nick's title is. Again,
He's our data specialist.
He is the data wizard, I would like to call him. So Nick may, and I guess, do we want to look at just the 43 million first, or do we want to look at the whole 5-year plan and point out some things there? Any preferences where you all would like to begin your discussions?
Begin no.
Jump in.
Eventually, at some point, I want to talk about the 5-year plan, but we don't necessarily begin there.
Okay. All right, Nick, you want to just kind of hit some highlights on the $43 million list. Talk about what we added in.
Hey, everybody. Sure thing. So I'm not sure what screen we're looking at, if there is another tab available. Basically, I can just summarize this. We looked at what was coming up over the next few years and we took the advice of your committee to look at projects that were not recurring projects, things that would have to be revisited in the future, things that were one-offs or things that could be done right now. And that was the purpose of them. So we were looking at projects related to finishes and things that have not those types of finishes, such as cabinetry, athletic playground equipment, and similar items, and we added those in. It was roughly, I believe the exact amount was just shy of $13.8 million, or are the projects that we added. So I am trying to see if there was anywhere in the packet that was delivered, if it actually breaks out those specific projects. I'm not seeing it. Carol, do you know if we specifically broke those out?
I don't think we did actually break those out as a separate to show which ones we added.
So I will tell you as an example, we did include the land purchase for a future school site for $9 million. We also had a project for replacement of casework and also removal of magnetic walls and replacing with standard gyp walls at Shanklin Elementary and I believe MC Riley Elementary. Those would be some of the largest items that would be available for you to see. It roughly is, I would say, 80 to 85% of the cost. These are items that where needed, the removal of the magnetic walls and replacement of the casework. Those were projects that we saw were very long-term projects that had been held off because of the magnitude, looking at every single classroom in those schools. But those walls were not very usable by the staff. Having those replaced and putting in the new casework, lumping those things together also is economics of price. Being in every classroom, doing demolition and then repair work or improvement work was advantageous to us to do both at the same time.
Okay, Mr. Fiedler?
Yes.
May I circled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. You just covered the district level, the 9 million. What did you say that is? Land. So what parcel, well, you don't have to tell me parcels. Okay, that's land for future schools. Under Joseph Shanklin, you just gave a definition of that. What did you say that is, sir?
So we have at Shanklin and at MC Riley Elementary, we have one wall in every single one of the classrooms is viewed as a magnetic wall. It is made of metal for just use by the teacher. Over time, that wall has not really served its purpose, so we're looking at removing that and that magnetic metal portion and replacing it with just a standard wall surface. We're on those wall surfaces, we've also have interactive whiteboards a lot of the time, so we've been coordinating with IT that the changing of that wall material, we would also work with IT on the refresh of the interactive whiteboards. So both took place at the same time. So while that wall was replaced with a standard gyp material, you would also have a new interactive whiteboard put in place.
And the reason why what Nick is explaining is you have a lot of technology that's attached to that wall right now, surface mounted. Those magnetic walls, the way that they're currently installed, they're riveted onto the structure. So you'll go right now, you'll see teachers have attached things through the years. They're really difficult to clean. And then maintenance will go there and try to do repairs. And you'll find areas where you have an opening that's just jagged. You don't want anybody sticking their hand there, getting hurt. And when you remove those walls, you're gonna damage the studs behind the wall. So we need to include some repairs or some money there for the framing and then putting the gypsum walls in there. The removal of that technology, the reinstallation of the technology. So we figured that it would go hand in hand with technology refresh as well.
And the casework. So if
Yes.
you're going to go in and renovate that room and take that wall out, why not do everything for that classroom and replace it all? Because both the casework, the wall, whiteboards, all those things, and then probably move some of the painting schedules around as well. So with those big projects being done and completed, that will feel like an amazing brand new space.
Yes.
That's a good definite explanation. I appreciate it. The question that I do have tangential to that is part of it of the technology refresh out of the 8.8 million that's on the technology. How much of that technology is assigned to this particular project?
This is on a district-wide level refresh.
Right.
So it's spread out amongst all the schools.
So if you
So-
could find, I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
if you could find, you don't have to do it now, just find that information because I was hit today with the person saying, what about the technology? And are we bringing the technology? And I just.
We do, Mr. Shohan provided us with their 5-year plan. We've worked with them to do some adjustments. And, I don't think we sent that to Robin to be able to pull up.
Not a problem,
Okay.
not a problem. I'm just,
Yes.
If you have it, I mean, if you want it.
I'm gonna,
email
look for it really quick.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be able to go back to constituents. And it's not the first time I've heard about how we improve technology. And the 8.8 million is a good number. It feels robust to me, but also to be able to enunciate, well, here's an example of what we're doing. So I'm not questioning the allocation.
So a statement I'll make is working with Mark, we've seen that what they're doing is roughly a 5-year plan on all of the different subjects. Interactive whiteboards, for example, is actually one subject where they are going to sparse that out over multiple years. So we did not see the full impact in a single year. Another item is the network electronics. And finally is the actual technology refresh at the staff and student level. Each one is broken up into, it's a total of 3 groups. I believe the student level, it is K through 2 and 3 through 5 for the elementary, and then they have the middle and high school. And the final is staff refresh. On the spreadsheet in front of you right now, all of those are noted as school technology refresh. But it does get specific to which schools and which type of technology, but they're all on a 5-year rotation.
You see it there.
And I think in another document I saw where sort of like in maintenance where you're painting, you got painting schedules 4, 4, 3 in terms of how long, right?
Mhm.
So we could give a I'm sure you already have technology.
That is what this is.
Okay.
So what they had built was a little heavy for next year, so we asked them to push that out. So for FY 26, and I think this is the adjusted one, I think that total million
Yeah, there you
It's FY 27 that was adjusted.
Evan was adjusted to be $11 million. So, out of our future $30 million, 11.6 of that is gonna be a technology request.
Okay, on 2027, where are you?
2027 is 11.6.
Am I seeing 11.6 up there?
Right there.
Where?
Go back down.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's it right
there. Yeah, okay.
So on the
And
screen
then-
you're looking at, column B is known as the cost basis year. That is the year when they established the cost. So they escalated it out 3 years. So do not worry about column B. Column A is the actual year of the funding request.
Okay,
For 28, they have 8.5 million. For 29, there's 8.4 million. And then 30, there's a total there,
okay, so if you can
but
just,
again, $7 or $8 million after that each year.
okay, so what we're asking, just so we can answer the questions, I think there'll be a lot of questioning about technology. So maybe I can get this and I'll go through it
Okay,
and then just help me. I may come with questions or something.
absolutely, yes.
All right, the other big one is, St. Helena 2.9. Did we get that? And I'm on this sheet where the big numbers are. Mr. Fielder, on the capital needs by discipline? Yeah, 2.9. Over Ms. Cushing there, St. Helena.
So in that is casework of $1 million, the magnetic walls for $1 million. A partial HVAC system replacement. Restroom renovations, paint the building. Electrical transformer, and baseboards.
Good.
So on this very long list here, it is sorted by school. That first FY 26 starts with that.
It's on the next
Every
page
year after
behind
that. So you can kind of sort out and see what each of those projects are on that big, long list, in the 5-year plan.
And I see the 5 million, that's on the grand total. And that's on the building. Okay. That satisfies the questions that I had in terms of specific, anybody else?
I'm good. My last meeting with my principals, almost everything that they listed me is on this list, and I'm happy.
Oh, that's good news.
Roof at, Broad River, the leaks were heavy on her mind. And then, at Shanklin, the metal walls, the jagged edges, which you already addressed, or, and then she also asked for a marquee, an electronic marquee, so I'm good. Not that I'm not an advocate for everybody's.
Good
It's okay.
No, I echo the same sentiments. I've been to all of my schools and all the things that are listed are needed and we're happy.
Sounds good. All right. So what's the next step for this? Seems like everybody's happy with the aggregate. I'm happy with the big totals that.
Well, Miss Phillips just walked in. I think she's
Oh, yeah.
gonna have a little presentation about some money. And how
I
we're
don't
going
have a
to
presentation, I think.
answer
that- I
questions.
answer questions,
Okay.
some,
Okay.
and Franny and Brian are both online.
Franny and Brian are
And
both.
Franny are gonna take the lead on that. So.
May I?
Yes.
No, okay.
Oh, Ms. Phillips, you're welcome,
Yeah.
please, please, okay. What about ACE? Cause I had a meeting yesterday with ACE. And they're working on some, energy efficiency things. And that they want to bring forward joint to both independent school boards, right?
Right.
And one of the questions I have, I know that there had been one capital assessment study, and I think there was a second that added 2 million. These are these are self-funding as presented. So we just drill down as to how the self-funding occurs, where it's cash flowing back and forth, right? So is there anything in here for ACE, or how is that handled?
You can talk about their funding and how they handle it.
In terms of us?
They are not on our, I mean, they can kind of, I think the two boards and the ACE board have to come to agreement on funding for that school.
We did a
That's my
certain
understanding.
percentage when I was asking Tanya about something last week. It's a certain percentage we paid and a certain percentage they paid.
Correct.
So if it costs $2 million, we have to pay half of that. They pay the other
Yeah,
half.
for the capital. it's 50-50.
Right.
Correct.
So I think right now it's if it might be at 6.5. So.
So if they come to you all as a board and ask for, 6 million in capital, then that would be something we would have to include somewhere in our capital planning, because right now we do not include them.
And that's the question I'm trying to understand. Does that need to be included in this, even though it hasn't been presented yet? It hasn't been presented, finance hasn't been presented to us. So we can include that later. We have the.
In future years, yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. You answered my question. Ms. Phillips, any? We got you here, so we want to give you the honor.
Well, let's say, yeah, just kind of like, that would just pop red flag. So we're not providing any funding this year beyond what we normally provide.
Right.
And we're kicking the can down the road to next year
For ACE.
for ACE.
You okay with that, Ms.?
For capital,
Yes.
right.
There's been discussions between the boards. We had a joint board meeting. And what it's going to take is it's going to take a motion to be brought up for our board over 6.2, I think it was. And then they're gonna have to bring it up 6.2. Now, I've talked with Tanya about this. And there are some funds other than 8% that are available But we don't want to make a commitment for the 6.2 till we have a commitment for Jasper. So that's why it's kind of in abeyance. Once they come back and say, we've already told them informally that we will support that, or we can support that. We have the ability to support that. We have to get our board to approve it. But I'm not going to recommend it be approved until they come back to us and say they are going to want to approve. And we have to do that to get them off the dime. Now, there's some people that said, let's go ahead and give the 6.2 and we can get started and do some of the high price stuff first. That sounds good. But that takes pressure off of them not to do the 6.2.
My understanding is too, that the agreement is by law. It's not like you can choose to spend, Beaufort can't choose to spend without Jasper also choosing to spend.
Right. The law calls it. Yeah.
So you have to be able to, but you're in the market.
So the questions about Facebook code, is to make sure that when we go back, feedback, that they understand they both sides got separate, what the Colonel was saying.
Yeah, I get that. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that particular approach to the issue. We just jumped from 30 million to 43.5. And not one penny is for Jasper Ace. I don't know that I agree with that. And at least you to say, hey, in good conscience or in faith, we'll put up 2 million this year. You come back with 2 million. We've satisfied the 50-50, but because next year it's gonna go from 6.5 to 8. And the year after that, it's gonna go from 8 to 12 or something like that. The longer we keep kicking this can down the road, I mean, and if we go to them and say, in good faith, here's $2 million, you match it $2 million, here's $4 million to start fixing some of the stuff that needs fixing right now. And then the next year, how about we work closer towards that 6.5?
So one of the things is there's a history there.
I'm sure there is.
We're just trying to, my reason for questioning was to understand the mechanics of when it has to be introduced. Because having met that in that meeting just last night and seen this presentation, I wanted to make sure I'm raising it here so that all the experts and the different groups can come together. And I've already heard a lot about what are the trigger points in the timelines for those triggers. So I'm comfortable because when I heard Ms. Crosby and Colonel Garrett talk about the assignations from the general fund and those types of things, there are lots of mechanisms that I think might be available. I'm not aware of. I'm just trying to surface it so the organization can take a look and say, okay, here's what we're going to do very methodically. But I don't disagree with you that we got to fix them. It's just a matter, as Ms. Phillips said, the requirement is 50% from each on capital. And we want to see evidence that there's not only the capacity, but the will. Yesterday, I believe in that meeting, a lot of you heard me talk about the growth in Jasper County. Jasper is going to be one of the wealthiest counties in the state, not too distant future. All you got to do is when you're coming back from 170, he had to take East Argent Boulevard, then Circle K, you go right, and then 1 mile before you turn left into Walmart, drive down that street, that road. Unbelievable. And I mean, the cookie cutter houses, Ms. Odding, one time we had a conversation about one of the sites off 170, drove behind there. Development all behind it's a rainbow, a semicircle, all behind. What's that one? Yeah, there. Okay. And those homes are cookie cutter, not very well built, starting at $400,000 a year. I mean, $400,000. So the growth is coming on our side, on their side. So one of the messages to them is you can't plead poverty because, yeah, you can say my bank account's low now, but my God, look at the revenue stream that's coming in.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably, yes, but we can't bank on probably. At least I don't feel comfortable banking on, it's gonna be, what, I don't know, two hands worth one in the bush, something like, an economic explosion at some time, but we don't know when.
Yeah.
I hear you and I understand. It was just a little troubling, that we're like, it seems like we are passive in this whole process with them. We are waiting for them to tell us what they're going to do. And they're waiting for us to tell them what we're going to do. So nothing's getting done.
I would characterize it that we are quietly messaging. If you-
Okay, sure.
Quietly messaging, so there was an issue with the sewer there. The talk was that we didn't have sewer connections, with, Beaufort Jasper Water. And the sewer tanks have been pumped out repeatedly. We were able to engage Beaufort Jasper Water, they come out. There's a plot plan that shows sewer's been there for years, sewer. Have been there for years, but it is actually hooked up to sewer. So what the trouble was is that one of the, I don't know what you call it, one of the sump pumps that drives, it wasn't getting refilled with water. So that's an easy mechanical maintenance fix. So those are the types of things we want to show them when you bring up a problem, we're acting on. And I think maybe the next iteration next year, it'll be where, we've shown, hey, we're not stonewalling. We're just saying, come up to the same place that we are. And I think in a couple of years, they'll see when those homes are occupied and paying taxes. It'll be a good treatment, but respect what you're saying.
All right. My last comment, and I'll not say anything else. In the meantime, the people suffering are the students.
Yes.
That's all I got to say.
Yes.
So, then is there a feeling that you want to say we should consider ACE now?
Yes, I mean, why not? We just decided to go from 30 million to 43.4 or 43.5. Because kind of have to, and I get it, I understand that, but that's just one more thing that we're kicking the can down the road, and I don't necessarily agree with why we're doing it.
You want to make a motion that we take this as for further consideration and possible inclusion of any funding for critical needs at ACE? How's that?
Yes,
Okay. Is that your motion?
that so moved. Yes.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, motion to consider.
Yeah.
To consider
They're
ACE?
having political issues.
Critical.
critical.
Clarifying question, would that be on anything we decide we're gonna do for ACE will be on top of our 43 million? Or include whatever that number would be in the 43?
We want the organization, the experts, you and others, operations, along with finance to come back and tell us what's the best way to do.
Okay.
Got a motion to consider ACE for critical needs. ACE for critical needs
Is that okay? Colonel, you okay with it?
for funding. In the 8%, in the projects, we're putting,
They're gonna tell us
I know, but I need the motion to say we're telling, in the motion, we're telling them to do what?
to go back and basically research the proper placement of any funding of it at ACE for critical needs. Is that okay? Triple C?
Yes.
Thank you.
In capital
All right.
projects.
So thank you, sir.
Appreciate you.
All right. What else? Anything else?
At some point, we're gonna need you to carry forward the $43 million list
Okay,
to the board to be approved.
okay, so,
So
yes, ma'am, you tell me.
So are we to, my apologies, so are we to?
Right.
Yeah, $2 million for what we have up there to still come with 43
Right.
points.
I mean, from where I sit, this stands.
The stand, so add $2 more million to it.
You can go back and take a look at where we might be able to find the funding for it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yes.
with no year attachment.
No
to that.
year attachment to it.
Okay, so it may be that our recommendation comes back and we want to do it in FY 27 or
You got it.
28 or 30 or whatever. Okay.
And strategically, what that does, is Mr. Nate's point, we now are with great transparency can say you raised it, the next day we acted on it, we're researching it, and what the heck you gonna do? Fair enough?
I'd like to be, being able to go to Jasper County and say, hey, we're taking action on it. Yep. Meet us in kind.
Okay,
Good point.
that works.
All right,
Okay.
so the motion's passed, or did we get one for the seven?
We did, so are you all, you need a motion to take this list to the full board.
To the full board.
So we need
Mr.
a
Chairman,
motion for
that
that.
we take the 43.5 to motion to the full board.
All right, I second. Any conversation? Not hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Now, if you all want to look at the 5-year plan, you did ask us to look at that, so the third page on your handout, begins that look at the total dollar amount, which is 257 million over 5 years. So you just approved the 43.5, and 27 looks like you've got 71, 2869. 2940, and then 30. FY30 building. Again, Nick in his graphs and charts breaks that out for you, and then your detail on what those projects are on those last pages here. So was there any item in there that you would like to discuss? Nick, is there anything you want to point out for this group? In the 5-year portion of the conversation?
I would say the only thing I want to point out, when you look at the graphs, you'll see that I believe it is FY28 is larger than FY27. There is one specific reason for that, and we want you to be aware of it. HVAC projects, the large HVAC projects, a lot of times we are not able to forecast out exactly the full expected life. It is more of a range. We are currently looking at FY27 and what HVAC equipment we do believe needs immediate replacement. The bulk of the rest of it is inside of FY28. That's why FY28 is up equal to the same size of funding needs as FY27. As we approach FY28, the equipment that continues to hang on and we see additional life available, that equipment would be pushed out again to FY29. Please let me know if I need to explain that further. It's more about equipment that we are just not able to truly identify remaining life compared to other equipment.
Sophia, anybody have a question, comment so far on that?
I'll wait to see your answer. I do have questions.
You sure you? Yeah. Okay, Mr. Field, there's a group of science called tribology. And that studies the mean time between breakdowns. And the presentation I saw yesterday was one of the first ones where I saw there was a third party that actually does those independent studies called ASHRA. Is anybody familiar with it?
ASHRA?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what I heard yesterday is their data has not been updated since 1974. So is there anything more current from them that helps us predict how long some of these pieces of equipment will last, rather than, I know we're not just solely depending on the supplier, but to sort of support what the supplier is saying?
It's a combination. It's the supplier, it is the contractor who does repair the equipment, the contractor who repairs that equipment. It's not the guy who just puts up wood in your house. He is dedicated to HVAC equipment and he knows these types of equipment and model numbers and manufacturers. On top of that, it's your facilities department who works on it every single day, who understands this equipment and knows what funny noises are going to work and which ones aren't going to. It is not, as far as the full life. You're right, ASHRAE has not updated that standard. One of the reasons is because it is not an exact science. It's the same thing as the equipment at your house, that It's supposed to last 15 years, but somehow you still are running it on 25 years. 10 years later, it's still kicking. It happens. And sometimes it goes out in 5 years. What we're doing here is looking at the FY27. We say, I can judge this equipment a year out. I cannot necessarily judge this equipment 2 years out, 3 years out, or 4 years out when I know it's reaching the end of its life.
And remember, we did have that facility condition assessment and that mechanical units were all looked at that time. And given that this is when we anticipate this last, but sometimes like Nick's saying, it fails a year early, or we can make it last a little bit longer. So our energy manager, JD Atkinson,
He
he's
was very-
very good.
He was very good.
He is very good, about, kind of forecasting. I think I can get, another year out of this, or no, it needs to go now. Or we can push it off. So that's what Nick's talking about there. That money's kind of there. It could go one way or another. Next time we present the next year's 1 year capital improvement plan, we may have pushed it out one more year because some units can last, or we may have to move some up. So there's a little bit of built-in flexibility there in that 5 year forecast, but enough money to do it all in the end.
And allow me to add to it, if I'm correct, is you also look at some of the work order histories of those pieces of equipment.
Correct, right.
So if you're seeing that it's having a constant issue with say the coil is constantly failing or something, and then you at some point you gotta say, hey, this unit's gotta give out on us. So I think that's how Nick and Carol, they come together to get that feedback from JD, and that's how they're able to identify, hey, this is what we need. It's basically their life cycle analysis.
JD will quickly tell you, unit in certain areas will not last
said
as
that
long in
last
other
night.
areas.
He
Exactly.
said that last.
Just because of ocean conditions blowing in and those good things.
I would feel comfortable, even more comfortable than if there's an external source,
Mhm.
like the underwriter's laboratory. Right? Because in the petroleum industry, we run refineries 24/7, 365, for 5, 6, 7 years. Sometimes I'll push it at 8. But if I push it at 8, I know I'm getting into bad territory and it's gonna be my noose around my neck. So if there's an external source, it's easier to make that 6th and 7th year decision. So, Mr. Nate?
Mr. Nurk, are you available?
I am.
Could you answer maybe as to when we're jumping, what is that, almost an 80% increase over this year's the millage? I mean, this year's millage, we have to take out the maximum amount for 43.4 for going in next year. Now we're gonna jump to 70 million for 8% projects. Am I asking the wrong person?
Are you talking about just this year's funding, or are you talking about this year's
Talking about
funding
in the
plus?
future, because FY26 is the 43.4, right?
So let me kind of clarify that 70 million that we're right now is just sitting there in 27. You all will tell us what dollar amount basically we'll be able to have, and we'll adjust projects accordingly.
Oh, okay.
Bring forward projects that are more of a priority, and then again, we end up pushing those off. Are we kicking projects down the road? Absolutely. The burden is what I mean, it's what we're doing. This year gives us a great opportunity with $43 million to do a lot of catch up.
Agreed, yes.
Right, but just know that those dollar amounts, 200 and whatever that total was in 5 years,
So,
is sitting out there as identified as needs right now.
okay.
Okay, does that make more sense?
Oh, it definitely makes sense.
Okay.
I'm just trying to if we're with the 23 referendum now passed, trying to keep our millage accurate at the same, because we have to.
Right.
Got it. So I'm looking at 70 million in then the year after next and going, all right, if we're looking at this, if the HVAC is as dire as it sounds, what's gonna happen? It's like Robert Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
And I think I can provide some additional color on that. We're in between the point where we're gonna set millage for this fall and starting to issue a lot of referendum debt beginning in January. And I think the last meeting I watched, the last operations committee meeting, there was some discussion that January is a very good month to issue bonds just because supply and demand is in your favor. And it takes a little bit more work to get on a January schedule, but that's the path that we're on, and everyone's committed to doing their respective parts to achieve that goal. So in this particular year, before we start issuing the referendum debt, our numbers right now show we can support an 8% bond issue of $43.4 million. And then going forward, say this time next year, we have budgeted over a 2-year payback, $30 million. The year after that, another $30 million with the 2-year payback. The year after that, $35 million with the 2-year payback. The year after that, $35 million with the 2-year payback. So we're reserving the cash flow as we start issuing this referendum debt so that we're trying to perfect staying at the 36.3 mils while we continue to issue a large amount of referendum bonds. And with your OEA policy regarding 8%, it's critically important that we recycle these 8% dollars as quickly as possible. And this one time, I see it as a little bit more of a one-time, last time opportunity here to maybe fund a little bit more of your 8%. This time next year, I think things are going to be a little bit tighter because we'll have issued $200 million of referendum bonds in January. Does that make sense how we fund the 8% program on an annualized basis?
Yes. I was just hoping that you could provide some forward goals and or a left and right lateral limits, so to speak, when it comes to spending in the next 5 years. Thank you.
The spending side is, we're just on we're on the non-project side. So we reserve an amount of 8% debt limit to fund your 8% program, and the board decides what projects get funded. $30 million next year, $30 million the year after, and then 2 years of 35 is what's reserved in the model. Can be changed by the board at the board's pleasure. We're just trying to stay within the millage target of the 36.3. Make sure that we meet your OEA policy, and then also have sufficient conservative projections so that if there is a natural disaster, that OEA policy kicks in and we can issue debt for the purposes of getting you back on track while you wait for FEMA money, while you wait for insurance money.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nate.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or does this exhaust any of about the 8%?
You said that we need to be tight. It's not next year. How tight?
Mr. Nuri, Mr. Smith is asking about how tight it could be. Can I share my personal? Okay, so when I look at things geopolitically, there's a lot of stuff swirling in the world. And so a lot of the geopolitical economists are saying we don't know. And our economy, you look at tariffs being imposed on almost 30% of the imports that come from China. That raises the rates, right? So the economy will probably go down. So that's what I'm hearing. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm not an economist, but we study this stuff. Didn't someone say I'm not a doctor, but I practice or something like that?
Play one on TV.
All right, so Mr. Norrick, I think you okay? Okay. Anything else for? Yes, sir. No. You good, Mr.? Yeah, I'm good. You are critically important financer. Just want to make sure. All right. All right, so Ms. Cushenberry, we have what, 2 motions that will come?
Yes, 2.
Okay, and they are.
Motion to consider ACE for critical needs for funding capital projects, and the motion to take the capital project list of $43,572,000 to the full board as presented.
Okay, everybody good? Anything else?
And that will go to your next board meeting.
Board meeting.
And that is not until June 11th.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, may we abandon the building by unanimous consent? Anybody resist? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm getting old, Mr. Smith. I need to
So I better, I have 13 days. You're asking for a ready to come to. May I see you around the bike today?
Always from, well, as often as possible.
I think.
Yeah, it was amazing. This morning, absolutely sucked. It's an accident on 170. And slow down, and I couldn't just clutch out of the way of the steer, so I had to run the clutch the whole time, and after about half an hour, with that clutch, I'm like, put it in neutral. Pick it back, ride the clutch, put it in neutral. Yeah. My hand was starting to cramp up, it took me 45 minutes to go, what I normally 10 minutes.
Looks like this week to get to him.
Yes.
That was there, it took me an hour to get here.
I think it must be 30 days. Traffic going over.
That's the only thing I miss about California. She goes, you. Gotcha, that's. Okay.